I'd like to welcome all of you here to this first ever India-UK summit that is being organized by NDTV in collaboration with FICCI. And it's coming at a time when the entire world seems to have turned upside down. You have a reality television star who's President of the United States. You have political chaos here in the UK at the moment, coming after a tumultuous year that began with the Brexit referendum, an unexpected general election result that has thrown the country into a great deal of uncertainty. You have a situation today where China is witnessing an economic slowdown, and by and large, though India's economic progress appears to remain on track, there are huge challenges that India's economy is also currently facing. That includes the latest GDP numbers, which have actually shown a sharp decline following demonetization. There is also the challenge of the farmers' agitation that is currently underway in India, and the big issue of how to get in more investment, more jobs, as well as a whole host of social challenges that India continues to face. I'm very delighted that we have this panel joining us this afternoon. Lord Swaraj Paul, sitting here next to me. Wonderful to have you, sir. Lord Meghnad Desai joining us today. Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP and senior advocate of the Supreme Court. Dr. Zarir Masani, a historian and author with us today. Salil Tripathi, author and journalist with us today. And Dr. Mukulika Banerjee of the London School of Economics, the director of the South Asia Centre. And from Allen & Overy, Sanjeev Dhuna, also with us this afternoon. Let me begin with the first session today. It's a rather overarching question, but one we thought should be asked. Is India, or does India have the potential to become a superpower? And will it become a superpower in this century? So let me begin and throw that question first to Lord Paul. What do you think?
Without any question, in my view, and India has progressed a lot. We just keep shooting India for no reason or rhyme. After all, this is 70 years. India has come a long way. And every year more progress is as there will be always setbacks. But we are definitely far ahead.
In what would you say are the indicators or the top three indicators, or what boxes do we tick off to be a superpower according to you?
First of all, after 70 years we have been able to maintain democracy, and a very strong democracy, one of the strongest democracies today in the world. So that is one thing. Economically, there have been ups and downs, but we are ahead of it. Just need to remember what was happening in 47, when we got the freedom. I was 16-year-old, and we knew what we had gone through. The lot of the poor has not gone up as fast as it does, but the fault has been, in my view, the people who made it good. They did not allow enough people to make it good. I spoke about it in 1980s. So I think we can look forward to be a nation which we can be very proud of. We have had great prime ministers. You take a prime minister I admired most has been Mrs. Gandhi. She did a tremendous job, in spite of the fact that people used to criticize corruption, this or corruption. She was so much fed up of corruption, but the events there did not allow her to succeed, both in the establishment, in business, etc., because it was too easy to make money. That is where I admire the present Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, who has done a tremendous achievement in cutting down corruption. Nobody anymore talks about corruption, and even the Transparency International figures, they are showing that how. Let me know when you want me to get up.
Don't worry, I'll interrupt you.
Okay. He has been able, now people in Delhi do not talk about corruption.
You think the perception of India has changed around the world, basically?
Without any question. Today, India is recognized as a country which is on the march.
Okay, so let me ask Salil Tripathi to weigh in on this. Salil, would you agree with that India's time has come and the perception of India today on the world stage is very different from what it was, say, 10 years ago? And you've been living out of India for such a long time. You would have seen how the perception of India has changed over a long period of time.
So at one level, yes, the perception has changed. There is a perception that things are changing in India. And I'm using words carefully here. Whether they are or not, we will know later. If we look at certain key indicators by which we measure performance of a country, then there hasn't been marked difference. Lord Paul talked about the statistics from Transparency International. It's a marginal difference, marginal rise that we see. Ease of doing business that the IFC measures each year, not an appreciable difference there either. And if you look at some of the other indicators, which are actually the indicators that should really matter to people in India about whether India is a superpower or not, those are very poor. 65% of literacy for women, that means 1 out of 3 women are not literate in India. 2.8 million kids around the world die at birth, and 700,000 of them, 1/4 of them, are in India. The infant mortality rate of under 5 is 49 out of 1,000. According to UNESCO, 47 million children drop out of schools in India before they reach the 10th standard. So when we talk about the demographic dividend, when we talk about the large number of people who are going to get into the workforce, what kind of skills will they have? And even the minister recently said that the 500 million target that he had set for skilling Indian people was a notional figure. It was not something that was actually a realizable figure. So the statistics that we look at about what kind of India it will be, which is going to be a superpower, those are questionable. India is a superpower in many other respects already. Time magazine named Mahatma Gandhi as Man of the Year in 1930, before it was a country, as an independent entity. When we look at many of the things that we talk about today, whether it is classical music, whether it is yoga, whether it is power of the soft culture, India has been there for a very long time. So there is a moral aspect to Indian leadership that is there, that is being recognized, and it's always been there. It's not happened in the last 3 years, nor in the last 25 years since the reform, but probably it happened in 70 years ago when it became an independent country. So the kind of superpower leadership we are looking at, do we want to be as a part of the Five Eyes system? Do we want to have the military with the best projection capability? Those are the kind of questions Indians have to ask. And those may be great achievements, but until those other indicators are improved, it won't make any material difference to the people in India, whether or not it's a superpower.
I think that's important because very often, and I say this as somebody who has worked in the Indian media now for nearly 20 years, is that often what Salil is talking about human development reports and indices, they don't get that kind of front page headline grabbing coverage. And these are the things that actually should matter to us as a country much, much more. Nalin Kohli, let me ask you, in that sense, I'm sure you would say obviously that this is not something that the BJP government can be faulted for, and you're right, because this is something that has festered for decades now. And referring to the statistics Salil was talking about, India's latest rank at the UNDP's Human Development Report Index is 131 among 188 countries. Would you agree, Nalin, that until these indicators show a marked jump, we're nowhere near that superstar status that we aspire to be?
It's a broad topic. There are many things here. I'll try to sum them up. First, I think we need to understand the inherent nature of India. India is a living paradox in many senses. It's the only place, perhaps, in the world where you could see literally 2 BC to the 21st century coexisting on the same traffic junction. You could see a Mercedes-Benz and a bullock cart. And these are not isolated pockets. These are coexisting, and there's the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st century, all of them there. So it's a challenge. It's a huge population. 1 out of 6 people on Earth is a huge challenge. And if you're going to have about 300, 400 million people who require an urgent intervention from the government in terms of social indices, it's a challenge. But that doesn't mean that the government of the day doesn't work towards it. The government of the day is also responsible to do what it can, and this is what Prime Minister Modi's government is also focusing on. But if you ask me about the superpower thing, it depends how you look at it. I think the change of India over the last 3 years, and I'll keep myself focused to this, is there's a reassurance, I think, in India itself, in believing, yes, we would like to do something. And I think there's a vice versa, a recognition of that. And I'll give you 4 examples. Two of them were in London that I met someone. Someone went to Florence. I met him yesterday. At a hotel, while checking in, Italian person on the desk, barely can speak English, gives his passport and he says, oh, you're from Modi's country. A recognition of the Prime Minister. The second example that I'm giving is to someone in the UK who's settled here for a long time, taken a British passport, and he says, I'm wondering whether I should go back to the blue, which is the Indian passport. His kids now certainly taking Indian passports. So there's a sense of self-belief. Why? Because you want to be part of something that perhaps is a success story in some way. Economically, yes, it's an exciting place. Whether it's 7.1, 7.5, 7.3, it doesn't matter. India is a growth engine. You were speaking about, and I'll come to employment straight. IT, there has been a slowdown in IT. That's also because of global factors, because of H-1B visas in the United States. But India has phenomenal scope for IT services. We are nowhere close to what we could utilize. So that's an opportunity in there, which is part of the digital plan of the Prime Minister also, or the Digital India program. We don't tend to look at the figures beyond the organized sector. If unemployment was such a major factor, the BJP wouldn't be winning a vast majority of the elections, and certainly not Uttar Pradesh, where 200 million people live. By a huge majority, people, if they are upset with price rise or with unemployment, they vote out a government ruthlessly. They don't vote in a government with numbers that are almost 3/4 of the total majority. So therefore, what we don't count is probably startups.
Maybe the full impact of demonetization hasn't been felt
I'll
yet.
come to demonetization also. I marked that also, Nidhi. So maybe we don't look at the entire picture. Let me pick one scheme. Mudra, which is the micro units development and refinance agency scheme. We approximately 40 billion pounds, if I calculate in pounds, 40 billion pounds have reached out to 75 million people, from as small as 500 pounds to the maximum of 12,000 pounds. That's the scale. 70% women, a vast majority scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, backwards. So now these figures, these are stories that will come up. Maybe after 2 years, they will have an impact on the indices. They don't show immediately, because economic things are like fruits. You plant the seed, a tree comes. But on demonetization,
I'll come back to demonetization, because I'll get back into specifics in just a moment. But let me ask Lord Meghnad Desai, if you were to sum up what's going right in India and what's going wrong, what would it be?
In my view, India wasted 40 years of independence, not growing. There's no serious development in India for 40 years. And every other country which was poorer than India in Asia in 1947 surpassed us several times. Malaya, Korea, you name it. And I think the whole farmer's distress is because we haven't got a manufacturing industry which will absorb labor. We have a manufacturing industry which makes machines to make machines to make machines, because that was our great dream. So I think that, and the same way in the social aspect, very conservative, no serious social reform. Why we still have Rajputs beating up Dalits, 20 miles from Delhi. It happens. And because nobody wanted to reform society. Nobody wanted to reform. Politics was very good because it's universal adult franchise. That's the greatest thing India has done, to give franchise to everybody. But apart from that, I think there is a great desire to be superpower, because it is an elitist culture. The culture is very elitist. The best people want to be out there, best of the best of the world. But those who are left behind are left behind. So the question is, when are those who are left behind will assert themselves and say, hang on, we have some needs as well here. We have serious needs which are not being met, especially our desire for respect from other people.
Isn't that already happening through, let's say, Dalit agitations or even the farmers' agitation today?
Politics allows people to agitate to be able to improve their status. But otherwise, economy is at last slowly changing, but there's still a long way to go. So I think we will have, we're paying a price for 40 wasted years, and we will make it up, but it will take time.
Dr. Banerjee, there's a reference that that Lord Meghnad Desai made to the sort of social tensions in India. Now, how much of a factor do you think that is when you wake up to headlines about a mob beating up somebody near the national capital or in the national capital, they're called Gau Rakshaks or cow vigilante groups. When those kind of stories make national and international headlines, how much does that really impact on India's image internationally?
It depends who is reading the news. I think there is a section of the world's population that sees India as a business opportunity, and their incidents like this, if it's going to affect the ease of doing business, if there's social unrest, it's never good for business. So it's going to affect them. I think there's a large other global population that has looked to India for this incident. It's an instant of an audacious experiment with democracy. Right? Nobody expected it. Everybody thought it was going to be a complete failure in 1947 and 1950 when India was declared a sovereign republic and universal suffrage was adopted. People thought this was a bizarre and foolish idea. And India has proven that wrong. And over even the wasted 40 years, as Meghnad puts it, throughout, I think globally, there's been a sense that India, yes, its economic indicators have been very bad, its human development indicators have been consistently bad. I don't think you can become a superpower without investing in education and health, which is what every aspiring superpower has done, which we don't do. And I say this as an Indian citizen who has never changed my passport in 27 years of living outside India. I think we need to do these things. But at the end of the day, there was a commitment. This was a country that stood for diversity. It stood for development and social justice. It stood for democracy. And I think what the global population, media is picking up on, and it's impossible now. You can censor the media, you can have crackdowns. This is not 1975. The way news flows across the globe now, there are a number of ways in which people find out what is happening in India. And this kind of thing comes out. One thing which particularly troubles me about our democratic record, which I think has been fantastic. I think it's right, politics has been an enormous vehicle of social change in India, and electoral change, elections have been. But now, where we stand, the secrecy of the Indian ballot is seriously compromised. The secret ballot doesn't work as a secret ballot anymore, because ever since we've adopted EVMs, and I'm not talking about them being hacked, the point that you can find out every polling booth's data on who voted for whom, which is 1,000 people, anyone working on the ground is able to ascertain within a population of 1,000 which political party got how many votes, has severely compromised the secrecy of our ballot. We have the technological solution to this by introducing a totalizer to mix the votes like we used to mix paper ballots in drums. We don't have those anymore. There's a technological solution, and we haven't adopted it. Now, I'm highlighting this because this is the cornerstone of our democratic record. This is the one record we have which globally is recognized about India, and we've lost it.